Next, we will be talking about FinOps. I believe, so I really hope that Igor is not jet-lagged. Igor Ivaniuk, Principal Solutions Architect at AWS, please welcome.
Hey, Sid, thank you for stealing my swift intro. And I was going to mention that the customers already mentioned about FinOps before, and so here's the continuation, but now it's gone. Thanks a lot. Right, so how do we start? Oh, okay. So FinOps. What's so good and what about it? So I'm solution architect and I work a lot with the customers. And with them, we are talking about FinOps all the time, especially during the last few months. But to start my talk, I wanted to mention something that may seem completely unrelated. Surprisingly, I want to mention Roman Empire. Why is that? Well, Roman Empire was very influential at the time, and the culture that they bring is pretty important in human civilization, but eventually it collapsed due to multiple factors. And the main were the bureaucracy, overspending money, which led to increased inflation, and internal fights for power, which led to the decisions which were not actually forward-looking, but more short-term. And I see that many companies that are considering different practices working with cloud and working with cloud cost specifically, they are also making some short-sighted decisions. I'm not saying that those companies are led to collapse like Roman Empire, but there is something that we can learn from them. So, of course, before, when we were doing this IT management, IT cost management, we had to do a lot of strategic talks where we had to plan something in advance. We had to do forecasting and capacity planning because we need to purchase hardware, and we have to, again, manage the software licenses. Well, like one of the biggest tasks that I was facing is how to find out who is using which license. And essentially, the complexity of this purchasing process may be a little bit too hard for many companies because there is no real simple way to do it. But I'm not saying that these things are all gone in the cloud, but they are much better. Because currently, depending on where you are on the cloud journey, if you are only beginning, or if you are already using some cloud resources, or if you are already into the cloud, you are at the different stages. And of course, you may have realize this potential or not. But when you are, ideally, when you are moving to the cloud, you expect to get some cost flexibility, ideally. Then, of course, transparency, because that's what people are expecting from the cloud. And nevertheless, it's easier to purchase all those IT resources in one place at the cloud provider instead of managing them separately. But those benefits are not coming for granted. You have to architect for them. So you have to essentially adjust your systems, adjust your IT landscape to them, and, well, decide how to build your systems properly in order to actually gain those benefits. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the way how to implement the FinOps journey from the very beginning to scaling and to growing the FinOps function in your organization. When I was talking to customers and discussing with them how do they believe that this transition should look like from no FinOps to FinOps, or some from absence of financial practices to more secure financial practices, and they say, okay, that they keep saying that there are things that they have to adjust, and there are things that they have to stay the same. For example, the most important change is a cultural shift, because FinOps is not possible when IT and finance do not talk to each other. You have to believe that you are working on the same purpose, and there is no us versus them. Instead, both IT guys, finance guys are working together to deliver business value and to grow the company. Then, of course, there is a lot of new things to learn, especially if the company just starting the cloud journey. And I think one, also pretty challenging one was the change to governance approach. Because before, in a traditional enterprises, you have sort of end of month budget review or end of quarter, whatever. So some kind of financial review where you assess the past spending and you try to analyze if they were successful or not. But with cloud, you cannot do it like that. I mean, you can still do the monthly reviews, but they're not that effective because cloud gives you the opportunity to quickly scale up and scale down. It means that the decision of purchasing something, because the decision of launching the database or the virtual machine is actually the purchasing decision as well. So these decisions have to be done quickly and flexibly. And it means that the teams that are doing this decision have to be adjusted to do them. So they have to be empowered, and the finance guys have to be okay with that we allow our developers or our IT operations or whoever else to quickly, on demand, change the costs of the whole system running on the cloud. But, of course, with these changes, there are a lot of things that stay the same. For example, we still would like to have the transparency. We still would like to have the way how to centrally observe and monitor and manage all the costs, to have this transparency, because that's what is advertised to us. The cloud is supposed to be transparent. Then we still need forecasting to some extent, because even if we have flexible cloud spend, but so on, but we need to forecast them because we need to, in the end of the day, understand how much money we need to keep for our IT systems, like for the next month or at least for the next year. And we still need to be sure how to map the actual cloud cost to the users that created them. For example, to map spend to projects or to departments or to teams, you name it. Because this is this kind of transparency that gives you the way to enable good budgeting and, well, do this budgeting transparently. So what is FinOps? I mean, there are many ways to define it. So I just decided to put like 3 most important things in my case. First of all, DevOps is the methodology. So it's a set of principles and practices focused on cost managing. Then it really requires collaboration between IT, finance, and everything else. And it needs to deliver something to the company. So it doesn't, you don't have to implement FinOps just for nothing. You want to gain something from it, from implementing FinOps practices. So they should not be just doing that for the purpose of doing that. And then I'm going to show you like a framework that I use a lot when I discuss about FinOps with my customers. Skill set, mindset, and tool set. Basically, it means that you have to cover all those 3 aspects to understand how in a specific company or in a specific department the FinOps practices are implemented or will be implemented. Are there right people with the right mindset, with the right skills, and the right tools for them to make the job effective? Well, benefits, basically the FinOps benefits are something that I think you have heard already. And the most important for me is the cost control and optimization. That's the easiest sell, because that's how you can explain to your managers that you really need to go with FinOps practices. So you want to have these cost controls and optimization, but of course you have to do something to make it happen. You cannot just take them for granted. So how do we do it? Let's talk about 3 different phases of FinOps. we'll go through, in our presentation, we'll go through beginning, so starting phase, when we create teams, define responsibilities, define objectives, and so on. Then talk about growing these practices, meaning that we expand our tool set to do it more effective, and essentially scale the practices to the company, how to get the executive sponsorship, and how to advance your FinOps capabilities. And let's start with the start. Now you see the number 30% in 3 different KPIs. I mean, first of all, I think that you maybe probably have seen this already. There are different reviews with different numbers, but for example, this one is from Accenture review saying that, okay, 30% of TCO is reduced by cloud migration. And show me the company which would say, I do not want this. This is the thing that everybody is happy about, because everybody wants to reduce their costs by moving to the cloud. But unfortunately, that's not the whole truth, because also, by another report, only 30% of the customers or of the teams actually know how do they spend those cloud costs. Meaning that, I mean, of course, they know the bill, they know how much money they spend for the cloud, but what are they paying for exactly? Only 1/3 of the companies know it. And the last one, I think it's the worst, because according to the cloud report, around 30% of the cloud costs are wasted. And we would need to define what is a waste. To me, the waste is the cloud resources which are not used for delivering business value, and you are not planning for that. Because you may want to create like a backup or the disaster recovery environment, which will be not actively used without disaster events, but then it will spend some money. That's okay for you because you know about this spend. But around 30% of all costs are just vanishing without actively knowing about them. Let's see what we can do about all these things. So, FinOps starts with a team. And usually you need a sort of cross-functional team. So you need to cover, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have exactly 3 people, but you need to have teams that cover all those aspects. You need to have business aspect, financial aspect, and technology aspect. And they have to talk to each other. So they need to share insights, they need to align between each other, and they need to work together to optimize what you're running now. And I will be sharing some tips along the way. So the first one is, usually, I mean, doesn't have to be in your case, but usually those teams form organically. So it's not that you assign somebody, like, okay, you're going to be FinOps now. Rather, you look within your current employees for people which are interested in that area. And because already there are some people that just out of curiosity could monitor the cost of the project and so on. So you just have to find them. And those people naturally can work in different departments. That's also okay, because you don't have to necessarily form like a FinOps department. You can always start small. You should start small with a like small group of people, let's say a small group of enthusiasts of FinOps. Now, what do we expect from those people? Every team needs objectives. There are a lot of them. I've put a few, but the idea that those objectives have to be relevant to your business, they have to be easily understandable by the people outside of the team, so that when somebody, for example, when your C-level asks, so what exactly are you doing? What is your objective? These objectives should be clear not just to the team themselves, but to people asking about that outside. And I think the most challenging is the last one, to establish a communication strategy. Because unfortunately, I mean, I'm an engineer, we don't communicate good. Let's be honest. So the way how to establish communication strategy will define how much of the executive sponsorship you will get. So if your team can prepare some sort of reports or communications that saying, okay, we have reduced that number of cloud spend, or we have optimized something, and they are able to digest and to deliver these messages to the right people, then they will be successful. But without good communication, it will be hard to show their achievements, essentially. So what have they done? But whatever you choose to be their objectives, put them in pencil. So meaning that those objectives can be flexible and then can change with time. Because you are only starting the DevOps journey and you are only defining what is important for your company, for your business. So talking about the way what tools do we have to get insights to the costs? I mean, there are a lot of them. Of course, if you're not new to AWS, you have seen many of them. You can have tools to implement cloud cost monitoring. There are a lot of built-in tools. And solutions like Kudos, I think you have seen there. What is really important is how do you treat your tagging strategy and account structure. Because we are used to think about account structure as the matter of defining security boundaries or access boundaries or like project boundaries. But you can also consider account structure to be important for financial monitoring. Because account is a clear boundary and you can easily explain that everything that belongs to this team is in that account. And the same goes with the tagging strategy. First of all, if you're not using tagging strategy tags, you should start using them now, as soon as you leave this room. And also, you need to implement the strategy with financial tags. So the tags that are meaningful to finance reporting. For example, some of my customers do things like cost centers or project centers, whatever. What works with you works best. And of course, there are a lot of moving factors and moving targets in the cloud. So without proper alerting and monitoring of those financials, automated monitoring, you have the chances to be able to somehow overlook something and lose money. So implement strategy for monitoring. But with the tags, you never will be able to design the perfect tagging strategy. Because it should be always evolving, and you better start doing some tags and then add them or modify them. There are tools to modify them, but essentially you need to evolve them as well. And the way how you will enforce them can be different. I have one customer that has the overnight job that just goes and deletes the resources which do not adhere to tagging strategy. This approach has led to even some production issues back in the days. But after like few such scenarios, teams became very aware of the tags and they set up their own tools to make sure they always add the correct tags. Right, now how do you develop the skills of those teams? So here I have this like learning methodology pyramid. It's a generic one, it's not cloud related, but we believe that that's the effectiveness of the training. For example, and then the first one, the lecture, that's what I'm doing right now, is like only 5% of the knowledge will be transferred, so sorry for that. But if you try to map different resources on this pyramid, you can see that there are multiple options. Like there are a lot of pre-event sessions, documentation, courses on AWS Skill Builder, and so on. There is a FinOps certification from FinOps Foundation. You can consider having it. It's not very expensive. But the most important is practical experience. So if you want to familiarize yourself with cost monitoring, just go ahead, get the access to Cost Explorer, and just start building some reports and just looking into it, what is there, what is available. I think the most effective, the most valuable is if you establish the way how your team can exchange the knowledge with their colleagues, like with different departments or maybe with different customers. So you can have like peer-to-peer events, mentoring, joining meetups, and so on. So that would be the most effective part. So when your team is teaching each other, this is always the most effective way to familiarize with FinOps. And now, it may need some investment, because to make sure that you are doing everything right, or to increase your skills, you have to pay with your time into it. So if you are working with a team, with a FinOps team, make sure that they have some time for education. So they have that time that they can use to build their skills. Because the advancement of your FinOps team will greatly benefit your company. All right, let's assume we already have the team. We already have some KPIs for them. How do we grow the impact of the team in the company? Let's look at the way how we can structure the team. And there are different roles. That's why basically I have named multiple positions. So there could be some people with the title like FinOps lead, FinOps manager, VP, director, whatever. It depends on your company structure. But the key here is on the middle level, where typically we see people from completely different aspects and skills. So there are people from finance, there are people from IT, maybe some financial analysts or data analysts, and there should not be a lot of those people, because one of the largest customers that I have, with like multi-million operations, their FinOps team consists of 4 people. So it doesn't really matter of the size of the team. Of course, if your team will be super effective in cost savings, you can increase the team size. Perfect. But you won't be able to do it without the last person on this slide, down there, without the executive champion. And this is the very important role. That's a person which is not actively part of your FinOps team, but instead is able to advocate for the team. So it may be a C-level, a CFO, or a director that can understand why FinOps is important and why the things that your team is doing is important. Without them, it will be hard to advocate for new tools, for hiring new people, and so on. So basically, it would be very good if you are able to find this sponsor. And as I said already, you don't have to hire this team, or you don't have to build this team big at the beginning. You need to start small, and as soon as the team starts gaining traction, as soon as the team starts building something, you just continue and see if you need more people to increase the value of the value the team is delivering. Now, regarding the tools, we have a lot of tools, both by AWS and third party. I mean, AWS Cost Explorer is like the good, the bad, and the ugly in this world. So that's the only tool probably you cannot skip if you are really into the cloud costs. So you'd better familiarize yourself with it. Many of you have seen already the cost and usage reports and the dashboards that are using it to visualize it, like the Kudos dashboards. If you haven't seen them, just have a look. Essentially, it's a solution built by the AWS team that runs on your account, on your infrastructure, so it's not shared with anyone else. It builds a quick site dashboards for you, which easy visualize a lot of aspects of the cloud costs. And of course, the cost and usage reports themselves can be used to query them directly. So if you just keep the costs in your S3 bucket somewhere, you will be able to analyze them with some tool, with some application of your choice. But those are not the only ones that we have, because there are a lot of tools, and what we see that many companies build something by themselves. So that's what we call homegrown. With homegrown tools, it depends, because homegrown tools are usually the most effective for delivering business value, because they are able to prepare reporting or visualization or some cost controls exactly the way how your company likes it. But the problem with them is that they need to be supported. So as soon as you need some changes to it, you have to maintain the team that will be modifying these homegrown tools. And this can lead into a separate development project. So if your company is willing to have this team or to monitor and to manage and to upgrade these homegrown tools, fine. If not, you can have a look into third-party tools. I put a few on the slide, but there are many of them. Probably you won't find one tool that will satisfy all your requirements. So just try them out and find what works for you. Initially, when I was preparing those slides, I thought, what do I want to say about forecasting? Because with forecasts, usually it's a topic that people believe comes from the on-prem world. So you have to forecast capacity to be able to purchase servers, to purchase data center racks, and so on. But we also need capacity in the cloud as well. So I wanted to put the different stages of forecasting in sort of crawl, walk, run pattern. So the crawl is the very simplest type of forecasting. Usually it's something that you perform centrally. It may be simple historical data analysis. So you just have the cloud spends, you see that the chart goes up, and you can guesstimate that it will be going up with the same pace. Of course, it is not perfect, but at least it is something. Because you have to have at least some forecasting to work with, because you need to later analyze how your actual cloud spend differs from your forecast to understand if you are within your expectations. But then, when you are already a little bit advanced with that, you can start doing more distributed forecasting, meaning that, for example, every team can build their own cloud spend forecast if they want, or even they can use some machine learning tools to do it. And here, the Pareto principle will help a lot, because the same 80-20 ratio usually shows that around 20% of the projects or the applications are responsible for 80% of the cloud spend. So those are the big chunks, and you can start with them. You don't necessarily have to prepare detailed forecasts for all your applications. Just start from the biggest ones, from the biggest spenders. And you don't have to do it all by yourself manually, because there are a lot of tools that can help you with some machine learning tools and some analytical tools to do that. And when you are evolving this forecasting, I think you cannot bypass the machine learning algorithms, because this is the way how you can adjust your forecast automatically and basically make sure they're automated and they are relevant to your daily operations. So you can even build in the optimization targets into those algorithms to show if you're actually moving to your goals or not. Then allocations. This is the topic that most CFOs like most of all. Because allocations is how do you map your cloud spend to a specific team or to budget, to do some profit and loss calculations or whatever you like. The main idea that I like to pursue is that you cannot, you don't necessarily have to have very detailed allocations, because the more detailed allocations become, the harder they are to make. So you need to stop your granularity of allocations on the level when it's enough for you to draw business conclusions. And usually, you should rely on automation for that. Here's where the tagging strategy is important. So the tags will help you do it. And at the same time, no allocation can be perfect, but consistency means more than accuracy. It is much more important to establish the consistent practice of cost control and cost allocation than perfecting it before launch. Because it's better to have more time for learning and more time for defining the best strategy than trying to polish it before launching into production. And one of our customers, for example, did it in a very simple way. They just took the names of the AWS accounts and mapped them to the names of the projects. It is very simple, no tags involved. But it already gave them something to work with. And when they had the next steering committee meeting, they just took the spend for the accounts and said, okay, this is project A, project B, project C. That was enough for that particular customer. And it's always, there's always a temptation to create the strict budget, to create the budget which will essentially limit the way how the teams can spend it. But I don't like this idea. I don't like to limit the teams. What I like is that when the budgets, so when the budget controls are used to gain insights into what teams are doing, to understand their priorities and to understand how they make the technical decisions. Because you can decide that specific database engine or specific size of the virtual machines can give you better performance and better business results in the end. But without budgeting, you will not be able to catch this idea if you're not monitoring your costs. All right. Now, let's talk about scaling. So, how to scale the FinOps practices to the organization, especially if it's a big organization. Everybody loves cost optimizations, and sooner or later, I will see that, or you will see that the outside people will start asking, okay, FinOps guys, are you helping us to save some money? So there are different ways to start with them. I mean, I think you know all of them already, because I think everybody should be already aware about reserved instances, savings plans, and so on, and about the need to monitor over-provisioned resources to see if something is not right with that, and how to find the idle resources, unused resources, and so on. So those are really simple, not very hard to implement. Just start doing them. Start doing them now. And the best possible way to start doing this is to make sure that you have continuously monitoring of your cloud spend, because this monitoring will give you the way how to implement these cost optimizations, because you will not know that something is not optimized if you don't monitor it. That's why you need to also make sure that the teams that you are working with are optimizing the costs as a part of their daily work, or weekly work, or monthly work. Maybe it could be one of your sprint goals. It's up to you how to implement it. So, reporting. You can define many different KPIs or metrics. I put a lot of them, just something that I took from the customer. So it doesn't mean that you have to implement all of them. What I like, for example, is cloud efficiency ratio, because it shows the ratio between cloud spend and revenue. It is not very precise in terms of the actual costs of systems, but it shows you, it's a health factor. It shows you if your cloud spend throughout the organization is healthy. Because if you are earning more money that you are spending on the infrastructure, it looks okay. If you're not, you have to fix something. And regarding the optimizations, a lot of those metrics are already built into CloudWatch or into Trusted Advisor. So you can just have a look into them and see if you just start using them because they are there already. The metrics are nothing without alerting on them. So having those metrics is fine, but it's even better to have some alerts on them. It doesn't mean that those alerts have to lead to some punishment or something else, but rather into gaining awareness that something is not wrong. about the culture. When I start talking to a team or to a company about FinOps, I usually ask them some specific questions that you can ask your teams or your managers. Like, what is your approach to budgeting altogether? Who is responsible for the budgets? Like one of the best, for example, is what happens if the budget of the team isn't met, or the budget of the project isn't met. And the answers can be variable. For example, some people can say we will be fired, and other people say, okay, like we will have to explain it somehow, but it's going to be fine. And it gives you already a lot of insights into understanding how the cost culture works with this particular company. And given on these answers, you can do a lot of things that will help this company to transition to FinOps. Where I mentioned that before that communication is really important. I found this AIDA model, attention, interest, desired action, and I put some ideas how you can utilize this model to foster the communication. And I think the most effective that I saw is related to gamifications. One of my customers has created like the set of dashboards for the teams. And those dashboards show the teams that have like the biggest cloud spend, or the lowest cloud spend, or the biggest cost ratio, lowest cost ratio, and they have some monthly monthly drafts and like a lottery. So they issue prizes to the teams for being the most cost effective, and it gave the amazing results. So within after adopting this project, this gamification, in half a year, in 6 months, they have managed to reduce their cloud spend to 40%, just because people were interested and people were actually competing with each other to optimize their infrastructure the most. It works pretty well. And it's like we all love that when someone is saying that we are doing things right. So if you will be considering gamification or some other ways to work with your teams to make sure that they work the right way, remember that you can not just financially appreciate those teams, but just some acknowledgements, some pat on the backs. These also work very well, because this helps people to understand that they're doing the right job. And we are here to make sure that the people are using the cloud as effective as possible. So we need to make sure that they are doing the right job in that. Now, I was thinking about some actual example of FinOps practices, and I thought, why not we show you how Amazon is doing it? Because Amazon is also a big AWS customer, and they actually are the customer, so they are paying for AWS. We are different companies, surprisingly, but let me tell you how Amazon does it. Amazon uses two metrics or two factors to understand how to rank the projects between each other. The first one, which I like most of all, is the cloud credit score. So cloud credit score, or I think you have heard that in the US you have the credit rating or credit score. Basically means how reliable you are. So the higher score you have, the better. So the credit score, how Amazon calculates it, is essentially measures how much you are wasting. So the percentage of the cloud cost waste versus total usage. And the whole idea is not just to have these CCS, but to use them in decision making. It means that you have to understand that the teams that, for example, they have 80 to 90% CCS, they automatically can launch their instances or new resources, and they can easily do, so they can do it unattended. But if your team's CCS score falls below 60%, for example, then they switch to manual approval. So every time when they need to launch new resources, they need to ask manual approval. No one wants it. That's why usually teams are working hard to optimize this CCS, ensuring they don't have cloud waste. And the second one is cloud cost to serve. Basically, cloud spent versus some business metric. Maybe revenue, maybe transaction price, and so on. And if you took two of them, both of them, put them on a chart, you have a chart like that, and you can move, and with cost optimizations, you can move the point on this chart, for example, backwards, by reducing cost of serve and by increasing the credit score. But okay, with this chart, you can easily help your teams to understand why modernization is needed. Because whereas just with cost optimizing of current system, you can just move your dot within this curve. But if you do some modernization, maybe with a different architecture approach and so on, you can move this cost basis altogether. So you can maybe reduce cost to serve dramatically with maybe some little bit lower credit score. So that's the thing that the teams are doing regularly. So they have like monthly or bi-monthly meetings where they discuss modernization opportunities, if they can use some new approach, some new technology to reduce the costs. And then this approach helps them to also prioritize the tasks, because it looks similar to your like SWOT analysis or decision metrics. And so what they do is they map the projects or the features of the project with the expected financial outcome. So the bigger the dot, the more we believe that this feature will increase sales or increase the business metric. And by mapping them into these cost to serve and credit score metrics, you can easily find what is your priority. For example, here, the priority segment is on the top left with the highest credit score and the lowest cost to serve. So these things usually you should do first. And this approach has helped the teams to build this cost culture into the IT decision making, into the technical decision making, because they just use this approach during the planning already. And then they're used to understanding how much their infrastructure costs and how much the projects will cost. So we have talked a little bit about skill set, mindset, and tool set in this presentation. I have gathered the tips from all the slides onto one, so if you want to, take a picture of those, or I think we will be sharing the slides anyway, right? So not a big deal. Okay. We have a lot of resources to learn about cloud cost management. There is an assessment from AWS. You can reach out to your AWS teams, and they can help you to make this assessment for you. Some teams or some companies do it like every year, for example. It's a set of questionnaires that can help to understand their average financial health. And in general, please reach out to us. Please reach out to your AWS teams to help you with FinOps as well. We can make workshops, we can make reviews, we can help you. We can help you building your FinOps strategy. Thank you very much. And if you will spend 10 seconds of your time, could you please fill in the survey? Just scan the QR code, please.
All right, let's take some questions. Yes.
So I have a question from the best practices that you probably have seen from your customers. Who should be the sponsor of the FinOps team? And you mentioned the sponsor champion or some that should be driving this team. And so what is the best practice? Should it be IT, finance, or operations, or what is the?
All right. So the executive sponsor is not driving the team. So this person doesn't manage the team themselves. So there are different people that lead the team, but the executive sponsor is the person that gains the most benefits of what FinOps is doing. So, and it could be like chief of engineering or the IT director, for example, which is which is reporting to business on the cloud spend, on the ways how much the projects that he's running on the cloud cost. Because the usual developers, IT teams, they don't report on the cost, but he does. So a person like that, VP of engineering, usually is the person that should be pretty interested in FinOps if you explain it to them.
Okay, and another question, if I may. Should this team be full-time into the FinOps, or is it better to be part-time FinOps and partially involved in other job?
Well, first of all, you always start small. And starting small meaning that no full-time people. From my experience, it's pretty hard to advocate for a full-time team, because the full-time FinOps team is needed usually. So at least the customers believe that the full-time FinOps team is needed when we have a lot of problems with the cloud costs. It's like, I don't know, full-time fireman. Yeah. Because if you have constant fires, you have full-time fire team. But if the fires are gone, you start thinking that you are spending too much for them. That's why I would advise that the people that are doing this initially start within their own teams, and they're like and they gain new responsibilities. Maybe they like part-time joining the FinOps team, part-time separately, part-time doing the original parts. Because I have the customer that has a dedicated team, but this team is actually grown from BI team. So they are not just doing FinOps in terms of forecasting and financial reporting, but also they do a lot of analysis on the effectiveness of the cloud spend. So this can work.
And the forecasting itself is done by the FinOps team or the product teams?
If you remember this, like crawl, walk, run. So the first version is usually done centrally. Because if you have nothing, then you just go to your main account and make a forecast on the bill of the whole organization. But the target is that the forecasting should go down to the product teams.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, up there.
A question about cost allocation for shared resources. So who should be responsible for costs, like for data transfer, and how to allocate these costs fairly?
That's a good one. There is no good answer to that question. Of course, what I like to advise to the customer is that the more separation you have, the better. So if you can separate your projects that generate data transfer costs into a separate AWS account, this would help, because at least on the account level you can separate the data transfer. But you cannot achieve 100% accountability. So you never will be able to assign all cloud costs to a specific project or the team. That's why there should be like a catch-all or the default team that will be, and usually this is infrastructure team, that will be bearing these costs. I mean, it depends on the company structure, of course. And there are different technologies that help to work on that, because there are already some tools that try to monitor the network usage of the Kubernetes pods and record them to be able, but to my personal opinion, this is too detailed. So you can separate big parts of infrastructure onto AWS accounts, and this will help you to assign the network spend, for example, to accounts. But if you would like to count every byte, I think it's too much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other hands? All right, I don't see them. Okay, Igor Ivaniuk.
Thank you.
Thank you.